We should talk about Panama, China, and El Salvador, because newly appointed Secretary of State Marco Rubio has been busy the past few days with trips across Latin America, and he's been giving us a taste of what Trump's foreign policy will look like. So for starters, Rubio's trip to Panama certainly did not lower tensions between the US and Panama. With us saying in a summary of the meeting, the State Department repeated Trump's claim that China is taking over the canal and adding, Secretary Rubio made clear that this status quo is unacceptable and that absent immediate changes, it would require the United States to take measures necessary to protect its rights under the treaty. However, interestingly, Panama had a slightly different version of what happened and instead made it seem like the conversation was pretty chill and that the US wouldn't actually take the canal back. Though those hopes were probably dashed after Trump said on Sunday, we're going to take it back or something very powerful is going to happen. With all of that being in line with Trump's repeated claims that China operates the American-built canal, which also reportedly is just not true. Right, the closest thing out there appears to be that there is a Hong Kong-based company called CK Hutchinson that operates ports at both ends of the canal. However, Trump's strong-arm negotiating tactics might just work there, as there are now multiple reports that Panama is considering canceling the deals with CK Hutchinson rather than risk a confrontation with the US. Although they might not have to act at all, as a team of lawyers brought forth a lawsuit against CK Hutchinson claiming that their contracts for the ports are unconstitutional. And while all of that is messy and crazy enough, it is hardly the most wild headline to come out of Rubio's trip. Instead, that honor goes to Marco Rubio saying that El Salvador's president agrees to house US criminals in his country's jails. And a very big thing is it really does not seem like this is a situation where the headlines leave stuff out, as El Salvador's president Nayib Bukele tweeted out, "We have offered the United States of America the opportunity to outsource part of its prison system, saying we are willing to take only convicted criminals, including convicted US citizens, into our mega prison, CECOT, in exchange for a fee. With him adding the fee would be relatively low for the US, but significant for us, making our entire prison system sustainable." And this, as Rubio echoed that the deal would include American citizens and called the deal an act of extraordinary friendship. With him then going on to say, "We are profoundly grateful. I spoke to President Trump about this earlier today, and it's just one more sign of what an incredible friend we have here in President Bukele and in the people of El Salvador." Well, the details here still need to be worked out. To say that this deal is controversial is an understatement. So first off is the fact that El Salvador's prisons are notoriously overcrowded and brutal. And I don't mean like in they beat you every day kind of brutal, although there are reports of that happening, but more along the lines of they take away your humanity. But it's all part of Bukele's plan to heavily crack down on gang violence in the country, which has been very effective, with El Salvador going from the murder capital of the world to Bukele claiming it has the lowest homicide rate in the Western Hemisphere. But this, as many argue, that it comes at the cost of civil rights, with reports that thousands have been arrested and held without charges or trials in his mega prisons. And then, of course, there's the little tiny baby issue of, is any of this constitutional within the US? Right? Many do not think that it is, with the biggest hurdle probably being the 8th Amendment, which bars cruel and unusual punishments. With us seeing people arguing that sending people abroad to be held in prisons amounts to exile, and further contend that exile is barred under the amendment. And us seeing people saying things like US citizens will be sent to El Salvador for their political dissent. Stop defending these monsters. Saying Americans will die in El Salvador in prisons for their speech. America is so incredibly cooked, and yet half of America will defend this. Which, on that note, we did see people praising the idea and saying things like, let's see how the thugs of Chicago, Atlanta, New York, LA, etc. enjoy the vacation there. Now, what I will say is that the reality here is that we have very few details about this deal, which Rubio said would be forthcoming. And then actually, we just got a reminder that doing breaking news is the worst, because Rubio just touched on this situation during a visit to Costa Rica and backtracked a bit, with him now calling the offer very generous, but adding that the administration would need to study the proposal. But then, shortly after that, Trump himself pushed the other way, with him while speaking to the press in the Oval Office saying,
"If we had the legal right to do it, I would do it in a heartbeat. I don't know if we do or not. We're looking at that right now. But we could make deals where we'd get these animals out of our country."
With Trump also notably specifying that he was talking about people both coming into the country illegally as well as American citizens who were considered hardened criminals.
We're talking about getting the criminals out of our country that come in through other countries illegally, right? The illegal migrants, as I call them. Well, we have people that are just as bad as them in our country. If we could get them out, I'd be very happy. When I watch some of the crimes being committed in New York City and Chicago, look at Chicago, the volume of crime that they have and the viciousness of the crime. These people are horrible people. And if somebody thinks they're going to be wonderful citizens someday, they're wrong. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. They're bad. These are hard, tough criminals. In many cases, they're crazy. They're absolutely crazy. But they're very dangerous. If I could get them out of the country and be in some other country where they're glad to have them because they make a small fee compared to what we'd pay to a private prison, or to, put them in one of our prisons that cost even more money, I think it would be great. I'd love to get him the hell out of our country. Thank you very much.
And so for now, we're just gonna have to wait to see what the hell is going on. And of course, in the meantime, what are your thoughts? Hey, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this clip from the full Philip DeFranco show. And also, a big thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring our Clips channel. Turn your passion into profit over at squarespace.com/Phil, or use the QR code. Because whether you're launching a business or a lucrative side hustle, your website is your digital business card. It's the only space where you control the story, no algorithms or distractions. And with Squarespace, it's so easy because they got a ton of stunning professional templates with drag and drop editing that makes site design incredibly simple, no coding required. So get started for free at squarespace.com/Phil, or scan the QR code on screen and use code Phil for 10% off when ready to launch. Squarespace.com/Phil.